This is Hex Girl, and you're listening to Tale of the Manticore.
The following podcast is intended for a mature audience. Listener discretion is advised. Welcome back to Tale of the Manticore, Season 3. Like the creature from which it takes its name, Tale of the Manticore is a mashup, a crossbreeding between two different species of storytelling. Here you will find the unpredictability of old-school paper and dice games with the storycraft of a dark fantasy novel. No character is sacred, and none will be spared if the dice decide their fate is at hand. According to lore, the tail of a manticore is barbed with cruel iron spikes. There will be much pain in the days ahead. Last time on Tale of the Manticore. The last chapter begins with Anayiah's ascension to level 3, where she learns the spell Glitter Dust. Following this, there's some brief DM talk about the inner crypt from a dungeon design perspective. When the narration begins, the characters are about to enter this final room and complete the dungeon crawl. Before they do, Fairwind promises Anayiah that no matter what they find inside, he will stand fast and face it. A little ways ahead, Direni and Tentir are the first to go inside. Direni tells Tentir not to touch anything as they take in the strange custom of human interment. The inner crypt is a wedge-shaped room ringed with stone slabs. The furthest away is cracked and broken, but the other 6 have occupants, the skeletal remains of the Kaymor royalty and their closest servants. When Anayiah and Fairwind enter, the half-elf unwraps Prince Lyrhain's skull, intending on returning it to its proper place. As she does this, Fairwind utters a prayer for the dead. Meanwhile, Tentir's curiosity gets the better of him, and he touches one of the treasures in the crypt. At that same moment, and as Fairwind speaks the final word of his prayer, there comes a noise from the far side of the room. All turn and look, and see an otherworldly and spectral form hovering above the remains of the queen. Clearly, this is the ghost of Anayiah herself. At first, it seems that the vengeful spirit will forgive the party's intrusion, since they're there to put Prince Lyrhain's soul to rest. But the mere presence of a cleric of Sodal is enough to infuriate the undead queen. She easily shrugs off Fairwind's attempt to turn her, taunts the priest, and then animates her skeletal warriors in preparation for combat. I had expected to launch right into combat in this episode, and we will get there, but I realized, since releasing the last chapter, that there is a little more of this story that needs to unfold first. It occurred to me that there's an opportunity here to use my current event meaning, tense agreement, in a way that enhances the narrative, and I'm going to take it. Do you remember where we left off? Fairwind was attempting to turn the queen's vengeful spirit, but, and of course he doesn't know this, she is too powerful for him to even have a chance at success. He'd have to be a 3rd level cleric just to have a shot. Anyway, at the end of the last episode, I asked you to freeze frame your imagination on the scene of a defiant Fairwind clutching his symbol, attempting to banish Queen Anayiah. The companions are unsure what to do as they watch these two personalities face off. Meanwhile, skeletal warriors hop down from their slabs, raising rusty swords. Chapter 21, Part 1, Day 16, Late Afternoon, Mythic Event Meaning, Agree, Tension, Party Status, Anayiah, 9 out of 9 hit points, Cord, 8 of 14, Direni, 9 of 9, Fairwind, 18 of 18, Tentir, 10 of 10. Spells available. Anayiah has memorized Message, Cord can cast Entangle, Locate plants and animals, and Slow Poison.
Apostate be gone! By our law none may harm a servant of Sodal, not peasant, nor warrior, nor queen,
commanded Fairwind, his face a raging storm. The wraith of Queen Anayiah seemed to shudder as peals of unearthly laughter erupted from her. Fairwind suddenly felt the impotence of his words. Along with that feeling came primal fear. Still, he refused to back down. The Queen's laughter subsided just as the pair of skeletal warriors' feet touched the crypt floor, and they scraped their long swords from the surface of their stone slabs, dragging tails of cobwebs behind them.
Wait!
The skeletal warriors froze in place, and the Queen's ghost turned to face Anayiah.
You have brought me solace, and so you shall be rewarded. I will spare you and your companions, but leave me the slave of Sadal, that I might have some small revenge. The rest of you may go free.
Anayiah had no answer to this. In her heart, she wanted to live and accepted the idea that abandoning Fairwind was justifiable. She also didn't see how they might otherwise survive the next hour if he did not. After all, their enemy was already dead. Could one kill that which was already dead? She didn't know, and she didn't want to try to find out. Anayiah's whole body trembled. She wanted nothing more than to flee, but her legs felt like they were made of sand. Nearby, Fairwind seemed about to answer for her. He let go of his holy symbol, and something profound seemed to come over him. The cleric's eyes shone like dark jewels. He was going to do it. He was going to give his soul to this hovering creature to save the rest of them. Fairwind looked briefly at his new friends, then turned back to the Queen and opened his mouth. But before he could say a word, Anayiah discovered some reserve of courage deep in her heart and let loose her last spell of message at the Queen with as much force as she could manage.
Stop!
It was such a powerful and surprising psychic blast that the Queen reeled back, shrieking in pain and outrage. An instant later, the skeletal warriors were upon them. I mentioned in the last episode that the Queen is a homebrew creature, a cursed wraith, and that while she can only be harmed by silver and magical weapons, making her all but invulnerable in this scenario, she cannot directly harm her enemies either. Instead, she has the power to animate an amount of dead equal to her hit dice. Since she has 4 hit dice, each of her skeletal warriors will get 2. I statted up these monsters in the previous episode and determined that each would have 11 hit points, an AC of 15, and would take half damage from the elves' swords and Anayiah's dagger, but full damage from Fairwind's cudgel and Cord's axe. I think we're just about ready to get into this fight, but there is still one last thing to do, because today is a level up episode for Fairwind, and he's going to need all the advantages he can get. Having achieved level 2, Fairwind gets new hit points, chances for stat increases, and finally, his first spell. As dramatic as it would be to have him use it now, the rules say he cannot cast it until he has had a chance to pray, so for the time being, it's just the hit points and the chances for better stats to figure out. For new hit points, I've got a 6. Oh, wow. With his exceptional constitution, that becomes an 8. Fairwind's total max hit points is now a whopping 16. Now that could really make a difference. With such a great hit point roll, I don't even care about the stat rolls. Still, I wouldn't say no, so let's see what the dice will say. For strength, I've got a 5. Intelligence, a 2. How about wisdom? A 5. For dexterity, I've got a 3. For constitution, a 6. What? This is wild. It takes his +2 bonus to a +3, the max, and it retroactively adjusts his hit points up to 18. Unheard of for a 2nd level cleric. Actually, it would be really impressive for a 3rd level cleric, and even respectable for a 4th. This guy is something special and rare, that's for sure. The last stat is charisma. 6. Holy smokes. Pun intended. That is insane. What a level up. And all that before Fairwind gets to choose a spell. All I can say is, he had better survive this fight. Speaking of which, there's no more putting off the inevitable. It's time to play out this battle and see what happens.
Entering combat.
Round 1. Initiative. The Skeletal Warriors. A 1. The Party. A 3. We're off to a good start. Since this side of the room is 40 feet wide and the only things in the room aside from the occupants are the stone slabs, I'll say that there's enough room for all combatants to move freely. Cord and Tentir will take on one skeletal warrior, while Fairwind and Dureni will face the other. Anayiah will stay out of combat, with the dagger in hand, ready to throw it if the opportunity presents itself. It looks like all the PCs will need the same number, a 15, to hit their targets. We'll start with Cord, who swings his battle axe with a ferocity that belies the placid expression painted on his face. The roll. Oh, come on. I got a 1. The skeleton is far too nimble, and Cord's axe strikes the stone slab hard, shivering the construct's arm and causing him to drop his weapon. He'll lose his next turn for that. Hopefully Tentir will do better. I've got an 8. The skeletal warrior parries his blade with disturbing ease. Over to the next grouping. Fairwind smashes his cudgel into the enemy, but with an 11, it merely clangs noisily off its rusted iron breastplate, having no discernible effect. It's up to Dureni to keep this round from being a total flop for the PCs. His roll. A 5 is a miss. Well, that was terrible, and it might get a lot worse. It's the skeleton warrior's turn. We'll stick with the second group and roll high-low for a target. High is Dureni. Low, Fairwind it is, and the cleric only has an AC of 10. Yikes. Here's the roll. A 17. Ah, sure, now I get a good roll. It looks like first blood has been drawn. How bad will it be? On a D8. Ooh, it's bad. An 8. Fairwind takes the full force of the skeletal warrior's rusted blade as it slashes a red line from his left shoulder to his right ribcage. The cleric grunts in pain and staggers, but somehow stands his ground. Over to the other group, another high-low. High is Cord. High, Cord will be the target. A 14 is needed to hit the construct. The roll. A 6. Cord manages to duck under the blade as he drops low to retrieve his lost battle axe. Well, round 1 was not too great. I hope things will change in round 2. Initiative. The skeletal warriors. 4. The party. 3. Is it any surprise? The companions did not expect their opponents to be so strong, and they lose their initial momentum. The skeletal warriors strike again, rolling a d6 to see if the enemy changes targets. On a 1 to 2, they do. A 2, they do. With Cord ducking by one of the slabs, the skeletal warrior aims his next strike at Tentir. A 15 is required to hit the elf. Rolling. Another 1! Oh, okay. I'm going to make a ruling on the fly and say that the rusty sword strikes the stone slab when it misses Tentir, but instead of dropping, the weapon shatters a few inches above the hilt. This skeletal warrior will keep his next turn, but his longsword will now be treated as a dagger mechanically. Over to the next trio. Another d6 to determine if the target will change. A 2, that's another yes. Dureni is the target. Like Tentir, Dureni's armor class is 15. The roll. A 14. The sword tip whistles right by Dureni's face, so close he can feel the air it displaces, but just missing. It's the PC's turn to fight back, and they had better land some hits. Dureni thrusts, trying to get under the breastplate's lower lip. A 3 means his sword skates harmlessly across and off the armor. Fairwind clasps his left arm against his new wound and brings his cudgel around for a backswing. An 18! Finally, a hit! The cudgel does a mere 1 to 4 damage, but there's no damage reduction for blunt weapons, so the result will be 4 points. The metallic gong is this time accompanied by the cracking of bone. The skeletal warrior staggers back, but immediately returns to the fight. Over to Tentir. He tries to chop off a bony arm at the elbow. A 19! Amazing. Rolling for damage on a d6. 4 points, reduced to 2 points for the creature's resistance to slashing weapons. The arm is not severed, but bone shards are still sent flying. Although the damage is minor, it's a start. Cord must spend his turn recovering his axe. Therefore, round 2 is over, and we move on to round 3. Initiative. The skeletal warriors. A 2. The party. A 4. Well, it's about time the PCs got the initiative. Let's hope they make it count. Cord has his axe back. Let's see if he can do something with it this time. A 13 is a good roll, but not good enough. The blow glances harmlessly off the skeletal warrior's pauldron. Tentir hacks away at that same arm. A 17. Nice, Tentir. I checked the first ed monster manual to see if damage should be rounded up or down when halved, but it didn't say. So I'll just say Tentir's sword will do 1 point on a roll of 1 to 2, 2 points on a roll of 3 to 4, and 3 on a roll of 5 to 6. The roll. 5. Okay then, damage will be 3 points, and I think that arm does come off at the elbow. The skeletal warrior now has just 6 hit points. Back over to Fairwind. He swings with renewed confidence, now certain that these undead monsters can be killed. A 4 means his cudgel is swatted out of the way. Dureni can still act, and he chops down at his enemy's femur. A 15 is just enough, and the damage? 1 point. Now both skeletal warriors have been reduced to 6 hit points, so that's looking pretty good. However, it is now the enemy's turn to attack. Will the skeleton facing Dureni change targets? Yes, it returns its attention to Fairwind. Given the cleric's AC, that is not good news. The roll to hit. A 7. Fairwind manages to step to the side and avoid a thrust that might have otherwise ended his life. Over to the skeletal warrior attacking Tentir. Will it change targets? No, it will attack him again. Tentir's AC is 15. Here's the roll. A 9. Tentir parries the broken blade. Well, that round was clearly in the PC's favor. Oh, by the way, I haven't forgotten about Anayiah or the Queen. It's just that those two cannot do much more than watch the fight. So, it's time to move on to round 4. Initiative. The skeletal warriors. A 1. The party. A 4. Wow, the party's good luck continues to hold. Tentir aims up for the jet and turquoise-encrusted skull. His blade sings out, but a 6 is a miss. Cord will attempt the same. Another 6, another miss. Fairwind and Dureni have managed to flank their enemy. Fairwind's cudgel crashes in and... a 12 will not be enough. Once again, the weapon rings the skeletal warrior's armor like a bell. Dureni uses the momentary distraction to land a blow. A 17. That is a hit. Way to go, Dureni. Damage is 3 points. One more good hit will put this thing down. But before the PCs can try, it's the skeletal warrior's turn to strike back. No change in target means it's still Fairwind who's in danger. Wowee! An 8 means Fairwind is somehow spared once again. Looks like somebody really is watching out for him. Back to the other trio. Tentir remains the target. Here comes the attack roll. A 12 means Tentir can dodge the attack. It is now round 5. Initiative. The skeletal warriors. A 6. The party. A 5. Yeah, that good luck couldn't last forever. Let's stay with Tentir, who will try to dodge a second quick slash of the broken sword. An 8 on the die means he does. Will Fairwind be so lucky? With his poor armor class, it seems unlikely, but let's let the dice do the talking. A 4. Okay, Sidal really must be watching over him. And now he can strike back. His cudgel whistles through the air, and... a 15 means it connects. This could do it. A d4 for damage. 2 points is not enough to destroy the skeletal warrior, but I think there's a satisfying crunch as the club crushes the jet and turquoise-covered lower jaw. One more hit will end this foe. Can Dureni do it? Natural 20. The elf leaps up on the slab and swings his short sword. It cleaves through the spine at the neck, and what's left of the skeleton's head falls to the floor. I wonder if Tentir can do something similar. He's going to try. He just needs a 15 or better. Rolling. A 1. That is not what I wanted to see. His enemy shoves him roughly back, and Tentir hits the floor of the crypt hard enough to have the wind knocked out of him. He'll lose his next turn. Cord brings his battle axe to bear and swings. That looked like an 18, but it was a 13. Another miss for the construct. Looks like we'll be going on for at least one more round. Round 6. Initiative. The skeletal warrior. A 5. The party. A 1. Unfazed by the defeat of his ally, the skeletal warrior that shoved Tentir to the ground tries to stab Cord with what remains of its longsword. What the heck? Another 1. That's the 4th crit fail this battle, and I'm using real dice too. This will give the PCs a very good shot to end things. Cord attacks. Oh, natural 20. I can't believe it. What are the chances of that? So, what does this look like? I think Cord reaches out with his wooden hand, grabs the skeletal warrior by the collar of his breastplate, and pulls it down onto the nearby slab. Then he holds it steady while his battle axe comes down on top of its skull, smashing it to smithereens. The battle ends with both skeletal warriors headless. one on the ground and the other kneeling at his own burial slab as though it were an altar. On the far side of the room, there's an awful shriek, and in a flash of greenish light, the wraith of Queen Anayiah disappears. Fairwind dropped his cudgel. Then he looked from the headless skeletal warriors to the back of the crypt, which, in the light of his barely surviving torch, was almost completely in shadow. His mouth moved, but no sound came out, until eventually, with a voice like a creaking door, he said a name.
Harlow.
Then he said it again, a little louder, but distractedly.
Harlow.
He put a hand to the front of his robe, which was now smeared with his own blood, and it came away red. He looked at it, blinked as though waking from a dream, and then fainted dead away. Chapter 21, Part 2, Day 16, Early Evening. Party status: Anayiah, 9 out of 9 hit points. Cord, 8 of 14. Dureni, 9 of 9. Tentir, 10 of 10. Fairwind, 10 of 18. Spells available: Cord can cast Entangle, Locate Plants and Animals, and Slow Poison. Fairwind awoke to a world of total darkness.
I am blind.
He sputtered, and then groaned in pain.
You are not blind, Fairwind,
Soothed Anayiah.
but your torch has gone out. We did not want to move you, because you were bleeding so much.
Where are we?
Asked the cleric in a weak voice, and then suddenly animated.
Is everyone all right?
He tried to rise, but Anayiah gently held him down.
We are still in the crypt. You've been hurt. Dureni dressed your wound as well as he was able. What you did back there, Fairwind, that is the bravest thing I have ever seen.
Never mind that. You are sure everyone is safe?
I believe so. You've been unconscious for a few minutes, and nothing has happened.
Oh, thanks, Adol.
Fairwind's fainting at the end of the battle had alarmed Anayiah and the others, but after their eyes adjusted to the darkness, they saw that he was still breathing, and they relaxed a little. Cord and Tentir went to investigate the far end of the crypt and confirm that the spirit was truly gone, while Dureni cut a wide piece of cloth from the bottom of Fairwind's robe to use as a bandage. Standing by the queen's slab, Cord and Tentir came to the conclusion that the spirit was no longer there. Cord also discovered something on the slab in the opposite corner, but before Tentir had a chance to stop him, the construct had already plucked it from the pile of cobwebby remains. The young elf half expected the wraith to reappear then, but to his relief, nothing happened. When they rejoined the others, Dureni suggested that Tentir return to the room where they entered and retrieve another torch so that Fairwind would be able to see when he came to. When Tentir hesitated, his brother tightened the impromptu bandage around the cleric's chest and suggested,
Perhaps Anayiah should go with you.
Tentir frowned away the notion and left through the archway.
Don't get lost, little mouse.
Dureni called after him. I'm trying to imagine how Tentir feels as he goes off alone to retrieve a new torch. I'm sure his heart is still beating hard from the last encounter. It's not just that he survived a deadly battle, but his experience in the crypt is the first time he's ever encountered the undead. Adding to that, Tentir is still unsure if he caused the Queen's Wraith to appear when he touched one of the crypt's treasures, despite Cord having done the same with no consequence. For Tentir, making his way back to the room through which they entered will not be difficult. I'm looking at my map, and I can see that all he needs to do is always turn right. He can't get lost. However, along the way, there are 3 opportunities for him to take passages not yet explored. Would Tentir do something that foolish? On one hand, as a character, his primary motivation is to prove himself, and he is certainly curious. He also has a wisdom score of 6. On the other hand, he would definitely be scared to find other spirits around, or even that the Queen would return. I mean, I would be. This is one of those rare times where solo play is a bit tricky. I'd prefer not to roll to see how a PC acts, so here's a potential solution. I'll send a quick email to Kevin Berenger, who voices Tentir, and ask him what he thinks the young elf would do. Here's a part of the email I sent to Kevin. Hey Kev, I need to ask a what would Tentir do question. What would he do in this situation? The PCs are in a crypt and have just defeated some undead. Tentir has never seen undead before this and is quite shaken despite the PC's victory over the monsters. He's sent off alone to fetch something while his companions lick their wounds, and he has the opportunity here to go rogue and wander down unexplored halls. But would he? It would be tremendously risky. There's a battle between his curiosity and lack of good judgment, and the ordeal he has just been through. Which side do you think would win, keeping in mind that if he does go off alone, he will likely be putting his life at risk? Now I have to wait for his reply, and so will you, because we are at the end of this episode. Part of me hopes Kevin says yes, and an equal part of me hopes he'll say, hell no. I guess we'll all find out next time. Until then. Thanks for listening to Tale of the Manticore. If you're enjoying the show and would like to help to support it, there are lots of ways to do so. You can recommend the show online or to friends. You can like and repost episode announcements on social media. You can pick up one of my offerings on DriveThruRPG or a t-shirt at www.beararts.store. And finally, you can rate or review the show on your podcatcher of choice. I'm super grateful for all of your support. At this point, I'd like to share a listener review. It's an old one that I let slip by. Sorry about that. It's by Che Webster from his Roleplay Rescue blog. Che writes, if you play Dungeons & Dragons, especially BX, then you need to be listening to Tale of the Manticore, the story where chaos rolls. Specifically, you need to listen all the way through 76 episodes to the finale of Season 1. Best end-of-level boss fight ever. Thank you very much, Che, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get to reading that on air. Now, I'm sure many of you know that I'm a big fan of Che and his show. If you are listening to Roleplay Rescue, you definitely should be. It's excellent stuff. Something else that's excellent? My cast of voice talent. This episode features 4 greats. Dave Cooper as Fairwind, Fiona Howitt, host and GM of the What Am I Rolling podcast as the Wraith of Queen Anayiah, Kai Ellen as Duretti, and Kevin Berenger as Tentir. Thanks very much to all 4 of you for sharing your talent. Well, this is about the time that I usually say something about social media and then sign off. But wait a minute. Have I been doing this show for 5 years now? By Sadal, I really have passed my 5th year podcast anniversary. Where does the time go? I know that I am one lucky guy for getting to put my craft out into the world, and I do not take it for granted. Thank you to all of my listeners and collaborators for helping me to make this happen and continue to happen. Tale of the Manticore has now been downloaded over 800,000 times, and I can see the 1 million download milestone in the distance. It's not a number I can even fully comprehend, but it does appear to be within reach. This season brought out a different tone than the previous 2. It also came with a new hosting company in the form of Spreaker. I'm grateful for listeners' willingness to indulge my desire to take some risks and change things up a bit. Before I sign off, I'm bringing back my annual tradition of Tale of the Manticore by the numbers. 3. Products offered for sale on DriveThruRPG, and pretty soon it'll be 4. More on that soon. 9. On-air PC deaths, and several more implied. 11. New Elvish words. 14. Original gods and deities, plus 2 saints. 16. Story so far bonus episodes. 20. Maps, both of the overland and interior variety, uploaded to the blog. 31. Orcish words. 57. Pieces of original fan art sent to the show by my talented listeners. 80 plus hours of fiction released to date, not including bonus episodes, meaning it would take almost 3.5 round-the-clock days to listen to the full story thus far. 91 guest introductions for the show. 181 original scores, 21 of which are new for this season. 210 episodes published in total, including bonus content. Exactly 300 in-game days played. Approximately 700,000 words typed into scripts, which, and this takes my breath away, is fewer than the number of times the show has been downloaded by about 100,000. Here's hoping for many more words, many more scores, many more scripts, many more characters, and not too many more character deaths. I'm so glad you're all with me as this tale unfolds. It truly means a great deal to me. And this tale will continue to unfold on the next episode of Tale of the Manticore. It's the story where chaos rolls.